I don't know if anybody can see this, but I am trying to live stream this after not only you can see my regular monitor is blacked out and my Surface has gone black because the battery ran out. So unfortunately, you're not going to be seeing anything here, um, or I won't even be able to see anything in the chat. Actually, no, maybe I can see something in the chat. All right, so if you need to say something in the chat, I might be able to see it. I've never done this on the phone before, and my glasses look even worse on the phone than on the computer. So I wanted to comment on a few of the stories that have been going on. There's the whole, hey Angel, thanks for tuning in. There's the whole Russia and Clinton debacle that's going on. I think that it goes without saying that many of us that have been following the news since last year have been we've been waiting for this to happen, and the fact that the news is only now starting to catch up with the fact that the Clinton Russia deals were far more egregious than anything. Forget about even what Trump did, but any other scandal that's been over the past 15 years. I think that they have to start to admit that they've reneged on all their roles as watchguards of our society, as being able to warn people about what's really the problem here. And especially the New York Times with the latest O'Keefe tapes, where he's exposing people that they're openly admitting, oh yeah, the New York Times fucking hates Donald Trump. All the people there hate him. He's universally despised there. Somebody said that today, one of their longtime consultants. Yeah, people are admitting it. It's not a secret anymore. There's no covering it up. There's no way to sugarcoat it. That we're the news that's fit to print. This is a paper that after in 2004 discovering the Weinstein story, they buried it until today. For what? I'd like to know for what. There's also NBC News. There's evidence apparently that in April, Neil Oppenheim, who was one of the editors who squelched the Ronan Farrow story about the Weinstein abuse, he was having dinner with Weinstein in April, and then the story never came out. So these people that they're always claiming, oh, we're the independent voice of America. They're complaining that Donald Trump is trying to silence them. Well, you know who's trying to silence you? You. You're the ones who are always trying to come out and say, that story wasn't really appropriate for that time. We kind of didn't think that it was of public interest. That's the way that they justify what they do. They want to go all the time and pretend that they're the ones who determine what the public interest is. Well, that's obviously not the case. What happened with the O'Keefe tapes, what's happened with the revelations as far as the WikiLeaks, that the New York Times columnists were actually colluding directly with the Clinton campaign, and other columnists and people who joined the New York Times after that, like Glenn Thrush, who at the time I think it was with Politico. We know today that the press was in the bag for Hillary, that the Justice Department with James Comey and Loretta Lynch, they were in the bag for Hillary. We know that also there were, most of Wall Street was for Hillary. You saw those pictures of her with Lloyd Blankfein, the CEO of Goldman Sachs. Who did not try to help this bitch? LeBron James tried to help Hillary Clinton, the guy who won a championship for Cleveland. I was just talking about my alma mater, Cleveland State. LeBron James won the championship for Cleveland, the first championship for this city that I live in, and I'm not a huge Cleveland fan at all. I'm kind of, I actually root for other teams, but he's the most popular man in the history of this city. Won the first championship since 1964 in any sport, and he endorses Hillary Clinton, and she still manages to lose, I believe, by 8 points in the state. The state of Ohio just took a poop on her. So who didn't try to help Hillary Clinton? And then you find out that not only were all those people in her favor, but at some point, so was Russia. Maybe not during the election, but earlier. So, in my opinion, it's time to finally dispense with this notion that Russia, for any reason, wanted Donald Trump to win the election. That he is their puppet. Because I think that when you read Clinton Cash, which I've read before, Clinton Cash can be kind of a confusing book at times because so much of it is figures and statistics and financial records. But Clinton Cash, mark my words, will probably be the map for what's going on coming up ahead. I watched in the past 2 days these streams with H.A. Goodman, a fantastic journalist, and Lionel, both with Charles Ortel. So it's almost like a, it's like a Clinton symposium when those guys get on, because Charles Ortel in particular, he can come on and list specific dates and quantities and transactions and laws and all that. This is somebody who you can't claim that he's some yokel out in the woods who thinks that Michelle Obama has a dick or something. This is a real thinker with a major treasure trove of evidence at his disposal. I think one day we might have to compel him, those of us that have been following him, to testify before Congress, be an expert witness and things like that, and use his analysis. Not that I don't think that they wouldn't find a way to disqualify him. Another controversy that happened in the past couple of days, this this Widowgate, or whatever they want to call it, just like with Trump in Puerto Rico, where a mayor, the mayor of San Juan, she manufactured a crisis within a crisis, the hurricane, in order to tarnish the image of Donald Trump while he was visiting the island, or even before he visited the island, while he was dealing with the crisis. Donald Trump, he won the he won Florida during the election. So I think that a certain congresswoman from Broward County took umbrage with that. So Frederica Wilson, she goes on the news and she mentions that she overheard a private conversation between one of the widows of the 4 Marines, I think they were Marines, killed in Niger. And instead of actually investigating her claims and asking why is it that you're revealing a private conversation between the president and a war widow, well, they try to they start treating her like some sort of Woodward and Bernstein, like one of the one of the Watergate whistleblowers or something, that she overheard a conversation where Trump happened to mention that her husband knew what he was getting into. Well, for about a day, people were saying, "Oh, Trump attacked the family of a Gold Star family." Again, they were trying to make it sound like that. He didn't attack anybody in this case. He made a remark to some parents that some might consider callous, because it kind of says, well, I mean, you join the army, you join the military, you might get killed. You might get killed. Instead of like understanding that, they focus on it as if it was a disrespectful thing. that he was basically saying, oh, he deserved to die. Well, in comes John Kelly today, has a press conference, one of the most interesting and calm press conferences I've seen during this presidency, at least. And he knocks it out of the park. He basically shows that when you're talking about contacting bereaved families, it's a sensitive topic, that he was consulted on it by Donald Trump, that a lot of this was done in order to handle exactly how the messaging is, that other presidents have said that to soldiers before, that somebody had said that to his son, or that he'd said it when his son was killed in combat, because I think he mentioned that he is a Gold Star dad. Yeah, that was a significant takedown, and after that there was video. Thanks, J-Man Truth Seeker. Saw you yesterday on the stream. After that, they caught video of Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, I think, leaving her office, and she was saying, "Oh, President or General Kelly is up against me. I'm so excited. I should tell my kids I'm a rock star." Well, that just reveals her motive. Okay, her motive was not to highlight anything that was really newsworthy. It was to highlight herself. General Kelly actually told an anecdote that I don't think anybody picked up on during that press conference, that he'd been at a ceremony honoring some fallen, I think there were fallen FBI officers at one point in Miami, and Congresswoman Wilson attended, and she had, and instead of having a speech and a statement about the people that died, who I think there were 2 law enforcement agents, she went up and talked about how it was important to have that FBI building there, and that she'd worked with President Obama and through Congress in order to get the funding to have it built. That's what she said at that. So she thinks that it's improper for the president to say to a bereaved family, well, I mean, he knew what he signed up for, which it's something that people have said before. She thinks that that's inappropriate. But what she did in order to self-promote at ceremony for fallen law enforcement officials who were killed in the drug war, which is another unnecessary war, but that's besides the point. We're talking about people that died. This is a woman who's completely off her rocker. If you look up on the internet, Frederica Wilson, that's Frederica with a C. It's obvious when you look at her picture, and I don't have a picture in front of me. Remember, I'm on my stupid phone here, but she's in a fucking cowboy hat all the time, some sort of either cowboy hat or a Homburg or whatever it is. Somebody who's always wearing goofy hats, or some sort of gimmick like her. And from what I heard, these are expensive hats. This isn't the first time I've actually inquired about Frederica Wilson, although beyond the hats, there's not much else interesting about her, except that she was one of the Trayvon Martin hype team, talking about murder and whatever before there was even a trial. So this Frederica Wilson, she parades around in these hats that are basically they look like fucking 70s pimp wear crossed with Spanish matadors. That's the way she looks, and I'm sorry for all of you people that think that this is really a legitimate criticism. If it's such a legitimate criticism, how come this woman, she never complained about all these soldiers that were killed over the past, the past 7 or 8 years under President Obama, or even longer under President Bush. President Bush, who is the one who got us into most of this war to begin with. I mean, the war on terror had already been to some degree started because Al Qaeda did attack Americans before that. But President Bush put so many of our forces overseas And today he's lauded as a hero by these progressive phonies that when he was president treated him like he was some sort of freak, like he was this idiot, this silver spoon jackass draft dodging piece of shit. They hated George Bush, hated him, and now he's supposedly their voice of conscience, and he makes a one of those new statesman like addresses and whatever. Well, bullshit. I don't give a fuck about your address. I didn't vote for you when you were president or when you were running for president. The first time you ran, I think I was definitely underage. I didn't vote for your dad. I didn't vote for Clinton. I didn't vote for anybody. The first presidential candidate I voted for was Romney, which was a mistake. The second one was Trump, who I think's given a little more return on the investment so far. Time will tell. No, I don't need to hear from George Bush, and I don't need to hear from Frederica Wilson, this woman who she's parading around her district, one of the poorer districts of southern Florida, and acting as if she's the new Rosa Parks. Just the same thing with Maxine Waters. When she started arguing, going on TV, yelling about impeachment all the time, like she'd forgotten her Prozac, or actually forgotten her bipolar medicine, her lithium. This woman was in histrionics, Maxine Waters. So what does Frederica Wilson do? She does even one better. She says, I can be even more of a scumbag than what's her name? Than Maxine Waters. This is a woman who was looking for spotlight. She was looking for her "It's Me" moment, her Me Too moment, which I don't know if I'm going to talk about that much today. It is getting a bit late. As you can see, I'm kind of out of energy from today. What was the other topic I wanted to discuss? There was an article that I did see earlier, even though I can't see it now because my computers are off, or they're doing something. There's some sort of weird seance going on between my Surface Pro and my Toshiba laptop. Yeah, J-Man, it really has been a long day for me. This Saturday night, though, there will be at least one stream so far with Mad Dodge, I think, will be available. And, if you guys want to chat, or I know, Angel, you've been on my show before, feel free to propose a topic that night. I'll probably have another interview on Sunday with somebody from Brazil concerning the trial of their president, because we could, in the near future, have a trial of our former president. Yeah, J-Man, I understood what you said the first time. Another topic was the Jerry Jones issue. Yahoo Sports put this article claiming that Jerry Jones is a real obstacle for social justice in the NFL, because Jones is one of those owners that says, yeah, I'm going to bench people who don't stand for the anthem. He didn't say he's going to fire them. He said he's going to bench them. And as far as I'm concerned, and it has not. I've always hated Jerry Jones. People already know that I'm a huge Cowboys fan. People make fun of it. Dan Patrick, who's on the stream sometimes, makes fun of it. Anyway, the real problem with saying that Jerry Jones is holding back social justice in the NFL is that Jerry Jones, if you think about it, has kept more black male out of jail than Al Sharpton. And it's not because he likes him, it's because he needs them. I remember what's that? I would love to see it. Yeah, if you look at Jerry Jones in the 90s, he was constantly hiring these guys that were basically common criminals, not just the white, not just the black players, but the white players too. There was Barry Switzer, I think, was arrested once on a handgun charge. He was the head coach after Jimmy Johnson. Of course, you had everybody on the Democratic Party, they complain about the Koch brothers. The original Koch brothers, when I was growing up, were Michael Irvin and Deion Sanders. These two, these two prima donnas are now announcers, and they're not bad announcers. And I'm not trying to say they're phonies, but look, they were they were real drug offenders back then. They were drug and probably sex offenders. I think Michael Irvin was accused of sexual assault at one point. He beat all the charges. There was no chance he was going to get indicted for anything because the guy was basically bigger than Jesus in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for so many years, probably even further. Jerry Jones is the embodiment of everything that's wrong with American society, which ironically makes him the perfect person to ruin this protest. I said that when he did the fake kneel down a few weeks ago during one of the games, I said that when once Jerry Jones is part of whatever stupid protest that you're doing, it doesn't matter. The thing has jumped the shark, and you can see that. You can see that since he became involved in any way, the protest has basically taken a huge nosedive. The fans have not united behind the owners or the players, except for a few different players. Like Michael Bennett still goes out there. He called Jerry Jones' statement something that reminds him of the Dred Scott case with fugitive slaves or whatever. How the hell can you say that when NFL players routinely, because of, I think it was the Curt Flood case, it was a lawsuit brought by a baseball player against the reserve clause, complaining about why teams are able to reserve players' contracts for perpetuity. That's the way it used to be. That was before free agency. Since that Supreme Court case, there's a such thing as free agency. It's actually the opposite of the Dred Scott case. So he chose a metaphor for something that is the opposite of the way the NFL has been since probably the late 80s. I'm just going to read a couple of these comments here. It says, technically the NFL is a racist organization, that they do not have the diversity that we've come to know and love in the fields of science, obviously. That's from J-Man. Maximum sarcasm, of course. Have you been looking into the upcoming attack on Washington, D.C. on November 4th? This is from A. Pinochet. You know what? I think I'm going to have to say that I've heard about it, but I haven't done much research on it. So I think that we are going to see a few disruptions during the November 4th period, but I think that they're mostly going to be the same as what we've seen happening in Portland and to some degree in cities like like Evergreen, like on college campuses or whatever. They're not going to succeed in really doing anything because these are people with very poor organizational and tactical skills. They've done more to hurt their cause in less than a year than they did to. They're basically wrecking an institution, the liberal, progressive, bullshit academic institution. They're wrecking it within a year after building it for probably over 80 years. I think William F. Buckley, one of the classic conservatives of the 40s and 50s, and even later, said that it was like, I think in the 40s that real communists began to infiltrate the academia. Pinochet, if you could be a little more specific with that, the carbon copy. Oh, I see what you mean, like the Euromaidan. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're the same guy that I know on Facebook, but I'm not going to mention your name. But yeah, if you could post something like that or send it to me privately, Um, J-Man Truth Seeker just says blood and soil, blood and soil. Well, that sounds like some Richard Spencer shit. So I'm going to change the subject because I don't care about anything Richard Spencer does. It's the least interesting as possible. He's probably one. You know, I hear him talk, and it's like you know, the liberals are it's obvious that they're just trying to bring more attention to him so that they'll have something to talk about. Pinochet says there's an encampment being built in Washington, D.C., 3 blocks from the White House by black revolutionaries. Well, that wouldn't surprise me. I think Obama's house is also not far from there, so maybe they could do carpooling. So one final topic I didn't want to talk about, I think most of you guys will be a little interested in it, is the new Austrian prime minister and his election, which I think, you know, despite all the past with Austria, you know, Hitler was actually Austrian, by the way, but this is a necessary change with Europe. Those people thinking that the quote-unquote far right in Europe is the real threat to democracy don't realize that there isn't any democracy in Europe, for fuck's sake. You just saw what happened in Catalonia. I know some of you, Pinochet will or Augusto Pinochet, I can just say your full name. I think you probably are not going to be very sympathetic to the Catalonians, but at least couldn't we agree that this is it's a display of the anti-democratic nature of the European Union, and people are taking notes, and they're saying, you know what, I don't want to give up my freedom of assembly. I don't want to give up my freedom to you know, promote the ideas that I support, you know, whether they're in terms of energy policy or healthcare or whatever it might be, you know, green policies. I'm talking about people on the left even. They're starting to realize that they have this albatross, just like Colin Kaepernick is an albatross to the cause of racial justice in the United States. He's actually brought it backward because nobody likes him. Excuse me. The same thing with the European Union. They have turned this leftist notion of democracy on its head. They've been a complete failure at everything from transparency to fiscal policy. I think I saw earlier on Nigel Farage's show. I watch a crazy amount of shows every day. Nigel Farage has a show on leading Britain's conversation. It's their talk radio network in Britain, and he said that, and he had a guest who was a bureaucrat at the Central European Bank. He said that there's an enormous deficit in the European Commission budget that nobody talks about. Just an update on these messages in the chat, because I want to just see if anybody said something cool. J-Man Truth Seeker says, I would be wrong, but I think the Civil War already started. This could be called the Cold Civil War. The fuck just what happened? Then he says, I think California is going to hit the fan way before anything in Washington, D.C. It's so crazy. The people yelling and calling everyone Nazis are the real Nazis. And then Pinochet says the right in Europe is center here. Spain could be the straw that breaks the back of the EU, hopefully. Well, yeah, that's something that I was predicting before this whole Catalonia shit blew up. I was saying, I think it was a month. It was early September. I interviewed 2 people from Catalonia. Actually, one. He was a professor, Enric Lark from Barcelona. You can go back, look at the stream, and comment. And just the fact is that when you have a large supranational body like the EU that undermines the identity of a country like Spain, you know, and I'm not taking sides in the Spain-Catalonia conflict. I don't really see why I should support one side or another. But on the one hand, they undermine the real authority of the Spanish government because the people of Catalonia have more of an affinity towards Europe as a whole than they do towards Spain. They just have a rivalry with Spain. And then it undermines Catalonian sovereignty too, because as you can see, they didn't recognize the referendum. They sided with the Spanish government. They've been ignoring the democratic process in Catalonia. I'm not saying that Catalonia should secede. I'm just saying you shouldn't beat people in the streets for a vote. You should say, oh, the vote wasn't legitimate. If you want, we can negotiate a recognized vote, and then we could, maybe come to some sort of agreement. That's not what they did. J-Man says, thank God for Catalonia. I'm so glad the truth and the light seem to be winning. So beyond Catalonia, there was this election in Austria. I don't think Austria is going to be leaving the EU so fast. They're going to be one of the first countries, though, to start the ball rolling in terms of processes and in terms of renegotiating their role in the EU, which will undermine it even more, because the EU has always wanted to force countries to be more like each other, and I guess now more like Algeria too. But then you have to also realize that you have, to the south of Austria, you have Italy, which has an election in May. Okay, so those of you that don't know yet, Italy has an election in May. And if you think the Austrians were pissed off, imagine the Italians. You have southern Italy, one of the poorest regions of Europe, inundated with migrants that came in and have been turning the place up like shit. You have local organized crime. They end up having to be the I don't know why you said 5-star, Apinachet. I think, or you're talking about this Simon Harris guy. But look, there's a shitstorm coming to Europe next year, and it serves ravioli. Those Italians who have they helped build the EU into the economic engine that it was. Northern Italy is an economic superpower. Southern Italy is just as miserable and crappy as ever. But both of them have ample reasons why they wouldn't want to stay in the EU. Obviously there's people in Italy that do want to stay in the EU. There's people all over Europe that want to stay in the EU. And they're fine to want to vote that way. I just think it's ridiculous. I think that they are gonna soon see that people don't want to be governed from Brussels, a city that has no identity, that's basically split between the two different Belgian identities. They're going to see that as a country like Italy, where there is authentic culture, authentic multiple cultures, the culture of Venezia, the culture of Fiorentina, the culture of Sicily, Calabria. They're all sort of unique, and they don't fit into one bubble. And they fight each other most of the time. Now they have somebody to fight on the outside. They have the EU to fight, and they have all these migrants. They're not going. These people, and you could say the same thing about the Poles and the Hungarians and whatever. And it's not a racist issue. It's an issue of people knowing that we grew up, I guess eating cabbage over in Warsaw. That's the way the Poles would say. And you have people coming in that they don't eat cabbage. Now, instead of talking about the cabbage aspect, we're talking about the religious aspect. Okay, they know that Poland, okay, this is not an issue of diet. It's not an issue just of culture. Those are just the small elements. But the real issue is, yeah, you guys are kind of on the same page with each other tonight, but it's not really, hold on, I'm not really keeping up here. Yeah, there's a real issue with that. Hey, J-Man Truth Seeker, are you? I can't see your photo. I think you're somebody that I know. Maybe I just forgot who you are, but your screen name seems familiar. It's not just from the other day. He says that time is long overdue that the white race as a whole takes pride in itself and stops genociding itself, allowing people to take advantage of our Christian Judeo values for turning the other cheek. I'm no longer turning any cheeks. Well, I agree with some of that. I think that just like the Korean people, they shouldn't be forced to become Japanese, which, by the way, they tried to do after Japan conquered Korea. Every person, and I've had white nationalists on the show, I've had black nationalists on this show. I think that people should be allowed to choose their culture. That's why, these Hungarians, these Italians, these British people, well, why not? Why not let them decide what identity they have instead of forming into this disgusting gray beige pan humanist identity that nobody knows what the fuck it is. We should probably let people just do things that are more comfortable, and there will be less violence that way. There will be less violence when people are allowed to practice their religion as they see fit, when they're allowed to speak their language. Yeah, I think we're both on the same page, J-Man. That's about it. I want to get off the phone because this is not comfortable doing it this way. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please tune in. I think Saturday night we will have a new live stream. I'm sorry to Mad Dodge was on my previous stream, which I couldn't get to work because my tablet died. And possibly Sunday. I don't know if I mentioned it on this one, but we are planning to have a discussion with a lady who is familiar with the trial of President Lula from Brazil. So please pay attention to that, because I like talking about, stuff that's going on overseas that could have a bearing on what's going on here. There could be some links with that in the Clintons. I don't think that off the top of my head there is one yet, but at least there's parallels with the Clintons. You have these officials that were committing treason and well, I don't know if it's treason, but corruption at the highest levels over there in Brazil. They wrecked their economy. Their economy is now in a deep spiral of recession. So that's about it. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Good Shabbos for those of you, my 3 parenthesis friends. Well, thanks, J-Man, but I don't think I mean, Lionel has a much larger audience than me, so if you can pull more people, I'd really appreciate it, but I can't compare myself to his channel. I do get a lot of inspiration from some of the things he says. Pinochet, can't argue with that one. I may not be a huge fan of the Pinochet methodology. There's plenty I have objection to, but I can't argue with that statement. Have a great night, guys, and tune in next time. I'll try to post the times ahead over this weekend.